All right, guys, we're live on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel here to cover a big weekend in wrestling. But right now, SmackDown is still on. So we are instant reactioning to Punk Life. I can't believe what I'm seeing. CM Punk is walking to the ring in Saudi Arabia, dressed as Thugonomics John Cena. I'm Scott, by the way. Welcome to the Rebellious Pro Wrestling channel. Like I say, we're here to get you hyped up and in the mood for the big PLE this weekend, because SmackDown is live in Saudi Arabia tonight as well. And it's been an interesting night. There was huge technical issues earlier on, so it meant the show was actually, I guess, kind of delayed. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But as I say, we'll give a little bit of a live reaction to what we're seeing right here on WWE program at the moment on Netflix. Of course, in the US, it's a few hours away from airing officially on the USA Network, but global viewers, now that the issues are over, can actually see what's going on. You've got a Punk Life graphic. So CM Punk is in a Cubs jersey and also in a Bulls hat, and he looks the part. I mean, he said on the Kickoff show that WWE did that he had something special for tonight, and I thought, oh, is it going to be like another pipe bomb thing? What the heck? I never expect to see something like this from Punk, but I love it. And CM Punk, I mean Cena, I should say, looks so confused. This is so. Is he going to rap? This is crazy. We'll get into the weekend's festivities in a bit more detail soon, guys. But thanks for tuning in. Kim wants Roman. You never know. Might get Roman showing up at Night Champions, but what's going on here? Aha! This clown plagiarized my pipe bomb, so I'm no still in world life, says Punk. Woo-hoo-hoo. I can't believe what I'm watching. Oh, Punk says Cena's buried more talent than the Undertaker. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, Nikki Bella dig there. Oof. Stumbled a little bit there, but good point about Batista. Oh, more problematic than Hogan. I don't know about that these days, but ain't got many very much love in the wrestling industry these days. But big CM Punk chance. You can't wrestle. Cena looks flabbergasted in his lovely purple outfit. Again, here, guys, if you're just tuning in, we are live at the moment. We're watching the end of SmackDown on Netflix, where, believe it or not, CM Punk is the new Doctor of Thugonomics, it would seem. Whoa! He's a superhero now. He works at DC, but no matter how much you try, you'll always be the Marine to me. Nice. Hmm? I give Punk credit. Like, this is a lot for him to remember. I mean, he's great at promos anyway, the way it works, but to remember the rap and the rhyme. 14 years ago today, was it? Pipe bomb. This is so strange. Big CM Punk chance now as well. Cena does not look happy. Tomorrow you're gonna lose to Kendrick because you're my Drake, basically. Oh, did the "You Can't See Me" in the Word Life? Well, there he goes. As the fans sing along to Cult of Personality, a little bit more familiar for Punk there, but yeah, we see CM Punk break out the legendary gimmick of John Cena, the Doctor of Thuganomics. And I've seen Cena come back as Doctor of Thuganomics in MetLife, but I never thought and I was, live there for it. I'm not live there for this, obviously. You can tell I'm not in Saudi Arabia, but I still never expected to see CM Punk impersonate John Cena in this way. But I like the way they've done it. I think it's quite clever. They were talking about how last week John Cena did his own pipe bomb. This week, CM Punk copied his stuff by doing his own rap. So yeah, pretty cool. It looks like the show is just about to wrap up here as well. We are still going to be live though, guys. Stay with us. Let us know what you think is going to happen at Night of Champions. What you think of tonight's SmackDown as well. You are watching live on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and we are also going to be covering the show in depth on our build-up show, of course. On the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel on Saturday as well. But for now, I'm going to bring in our first guest in just a moment. It's going to be Lucas, going to be chatting to us and letting us know what he thinks of tonight's SmackDown. Of course, all the kind of stories going into Saturday's Night of Champions as well. It's going to be a big show, a bigger card than usual as well. So looking forward to seeing what Lucas has to say there. It's been a while since we've caught up. So yeah, looking forward to that. And I'm sure you guys viewing are as well. Kim says CM Punk will win. Maybe CM Punk is going to be winning the WWE Championship off of John Cena. I mean, can you believe I'm even saying that in the big year of 2025? But yeah, it is possible. Now, what we're going to do in just a moment, as I say, is we are going to bring in Lucas. So I'm just going to be getting some of that set up in the background. While we do that, let's throw it over to the channel intro to let you know a little bit about what we do here at Rebellious Noise.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, you're here where the action is hot and heavy. Lucas, we've just wrapped up an interesting episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Started with some newsworthy kind of topics as far as the power outage goes, but ended with quite an interesting promo there as well. So, of course, we're going to preview Night of Champions here. But seeing as we've just got done with SmackDown, what are your initial thoughts on SmackDown from Saudi?
Yeah, I thought it was a very good episode of SmackDown, to be fair, tonight. Obviously, the the half an hour kind of blackout kind of was a bit annoying, but the shows kind of soon got back on track.
Yeah,
I thought it was a very good episode. There's a lot of talent featured, which is quite interesting, including some backstage segments featuring the tag team division, featuring stuff going on with the women's division and stuff between the general managers. What was interesting though, my interesting note though, is that 2 shows in a row now they've done the general manager about to make an announcement regarding the women's tag belts and then get interrupted. And so it does beg the question, are they just saving it until next week? after the pay-per-view to get this out of the way, or do they genuinely just not know what's going to go on?
Yeah, yeah.
Because obviously with Liv Morgan injured and just not able to defend the titles at the moment, they're going to have to obviously do something about that. And it seemed that they did tease even the segment with Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Like, are they potentially going to become a tag team? On the SmackDown side of things. Yeah, but I thought that, they did a very good job of spotlighting a lot of talent. But it does kind of worry me ahead of next week, though, because next week they're moving back to 2 hours. And, if you kind of look at this episode, all in, you're thinking, there was quite a lot that he featured, and they got onto the show that wouldn't really get on a 2 hour broadcast.
Yeah,
which obviously what they're going to, I don't want to say the word permanently, because they've obviously has 3 hours on Raw and then they brought it down to 2, but it just seemed that for the time being at least that we're moving back to a 2 hour broadcast from next Friday.
Yeah, like you say, they managed to squeeze a lot on here. I'm not a fan of the 3 hour shows. I've said it time and time again, but it was still an enjoyable show. It did drag for me. I wish it was 2 hours. I'm not going to lie, but as you say, there are going to be people that don't get to get featured, and more so when I feel like I like them doing the shows now the day before a PLE when they go to a different country. I do quite like that now. The only thing is it kind of sometimes takes away from that first initial pop and excitement of seeing such and such fan base, in whatever country they are. But it almost feels like a great opener, really, for the weekend of the PLE. You get a lot of the guys that aren't going to get featured on the PLE, and they're kind of giving you PLE level matches. I mean, we saw a Lice Woman standing match here. We saw a Fate cash in. We saw some, heavy hitters as far as like headliners being featured on the show, at least in promo spots. And then again, those who aren't going to get matches on the big PLE itself did have some kind of big moments in storyline progression. You mentioned the tag team situation, very much, threaded and weaved throughout the entire night as well. That's been a division that needs to be on the PLE for the longest time. But overall, I agree, man. I think it was a good SmackDown. We say it a lot, did what it needed to do, got us kind of in the mood for Saturday night, really.
Can I say, I think it might be one of the stronger kind of go-home episodes of television we've had in a while.
Yeah.
The product's been very weird for it lately. Obviously there's a lot of Vinceisms that they wanted to get rid of, I guess. But there's something that I think he always did very well when he was in charge. What was done very, very well was if there's a pay-per-view the next night or the week after, whatever, you would see kind of the main people all featured. And we saw that all tonight. We saw obviously both finalists for the King and Queen of the Ring. They went face to face, had their segments. We saw the main event of Cena and Punk in action. We saw Jake for 2. Obviously, he'd be defending the US Championship against Solo Sikoa. Obviously we didn't see the Raw side of things. Obviously, got Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez.
Raquel, yeah.
But it generally felt like, oh yeah, there actually is a show tomorrow night. Like,
yeah.
It actually is like quite an important show. Like, it's been a bit of an odd build to get to this event because we've had matches change. This past week, obviously we're missing an IC Championship match, but tonight I think they restacked it in a really good way. Obviously, the tag situation will be interesting to see where they go from here, because obviously they've done the DQ kind of no contest kind of finish now, the tag belts. But you have to imagine that. You have to imagine that I sense and I smell a steel cage might be coming into play.
Oh yeah,
because obviously all the other tag teams trying to get their hands on, obviously the White Six.
Yeah.
Usually the way to get around this is to book a steel cage match.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the direction they go into, and perhaps that might even be able to get on a PLE.
Who knows? I mean, we saw a fantastic TLC match a few months back, and it made it. I was at the time thinking, well, does this just prove it should have been on, or is this going to be okay? Well done, you did a great SmackDown segment, and it kind of feels like that it was the latter, which is a shame because I think that match deserved to be in WrestleMania, and a lot of this feud I think deserves to be. I say feud, it's kind of a interwoven thing, isn't it? It's been going on for months now with all these tag teams, but I've enjoyed it, and it does. We've had this debate before, but it does make SmackDown and the weekly shows more kind of enjoyable, but at the same time, that wears thin when they aren't good enough, it would seem, to be put in a PLE. But again, we've had a few conversations like that in the past, so we won't stick too long on it. What we'll do in a moment is we'll move into Night of Champions properly. We'll kind of predict the card. We'll predict the results through the card and things like that as well. We're going to get to some of these comments here as well. We saw Kim earlier on saying that they think CM Punk will win. Kieran says, I have a feeling that Roman will return at Night of Champions, so we could be seeing that there as well. Scarlett's in the house and says Canelo or Crawford. I've got no one in this, mate, because I haven't been keeping up with it or anything like that. But something I'm a bit more familiar with at the moment is John Cena. So, Cena winning tomorrow, says Scarlett. So we'll see how we go there as well. And Krishna's also in the house saying hi as well. So drop your comments down below, guys. Let us know what you think of SmackDown. Did you enjoy the show? And what you think is going to happen at Night of Champions. Before we do dive into Night of Champions proper, let's go back to that big talking point from the beginning, Lucas. I mean, kind of not much to say, but at the same time, noteworthy, so we should mention it. But basically, about a minute into the broadcast, it felt the whole thing just completely cut out. And they did that looped footage of, we'll be right back. And it played for, I think, 25 minutes. Yeah. Now, apparently, I've seen some footage of it, Orton in the ring, basically yeeting and stuff like that, and they were just kind of killing time like that. Still don't really know what happened with the Cody Orton promo. I'm sure it was the same old stuff they always sort of say when it's a go-home show, and they've got a feud to build, but of course that is the King of the Ring finals. We'll be touching on that as far as predictions go very soon. But a very unfortunate thing for WWE to experience, essentially, and they're lucky in some ways because They've got SmackDown again at time of recording at the moment. SmackDown hasn't aired in the US, so they can edit around it. They did go over. They do have that kind of freedom on Netflix to do so, and they can kind of tweak things essentially. But I was really surprised that when they came back on air, which I think was handled really well, by the way, by Barrett and Cole, they just made jokes out of it and whatever else and apologized. I was surprised that they didn't just quickly say, that opening segment is now on WWE's YouTube. You can watch it at the end of the show, or something like that. Maybe they will do something like that, and they just didn't get around to it. But what are your thoughts of the way it was handled and kind of just the surreal nature of sitting there for 25 minutes and not knowing what was going on?
I think they could have handled it better. Obviously, they always bang on about the fact they've got such a strong social media following and presence. Could you use any of that just to communicate?
They didn't really say anything until it was about to come back on air. So
one can only imagine that with regards to putting a segment on YouTube, they most likely have a contract with USA Network, who would be a bit annoyed if all of a sudden, a few hours before they're meant to get their premiere of SmackDown.
Yeah, but they can though. They can do it region block. They can just stick it up everywhere but the US. But I know it's a trick. This might make them have a contingency plan going forward, essentially.
Well, what's interesting though is obviously earlier this year they did the whole tour of Europe, and as far as I remember, and I'm sure there might be someone out there who had some sort of issue, but it ran perfectly. We were able to watch SmackDown and Raw from all over Europe, and it's all been fine. And I've genuinely had, and sometimes just my Wi-Fi maybe. I've generally had, I can count on one hand how many actual problems I've had with any kind of viewing of the content. On Netflix, it's been a really good experience. So I think, fans who are kind of commenting and being a bit angry, a bit annoyed, just remember we have had 6 months of, again, think whatever you want to think about the product and according to the product, but in terms of the actual stream and the actual technological ways of it going, it's been pretty smooth, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even going back to that first one, remember everyone was like, how's it going to work? The first live broadcast, because they'd done the Jake Paul, I should say, and Tyson fight, but everybody was kind of, in the dark, essentially, when it came to that first Monday Night Raw, that was, the debut back in January, that it, as you say, could have gone wrong. And 6 months in, the fact it hasn't is, and we still don't know what the cause was this time round, but hopefully it's something they can get on top of in future. And I mean, at least it weren't a WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, I think, even just, at least it wasn't a match as well. I think that obviously, one would imagine they've probably got a 3-hour pre-show tomorrow. They can just replay the segment then tomorrow, I'm guessing.
True.
And then there'll be the promo package and stuff. But obviously, it does feel a bit like it's always a bit annoying, these technical problems. But I guess they did their best to get it back on track.
Yeah.
I think once the show kind of restarted, it was good. And I guess the saving grace for us is that this was happening at 6:30, 7 p.m.
True. Yeah.
Not 1 or 2 a.m.
Yeah.
As would usually be the case. But I'm sure by the time it goes out on USA Network tonight, it will be as if nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And I think it will just be one of those things that maybe gets put on, gets talked about on podcasts and stuff, and like a little laughing joke for a little bit. But in terms of how they do it going forward, I think they got to remember their main business is producing live events. So I think as long as the live event attendance people were happy, especially them being in Saudi Arabia, as long as people in Saudi Arabia that are paying the millions of dollars for these events, as long as they are happy, I think that will be all that matters. But yeah, let's just pray and hope it doesn't happen during Night of Champions, as that is it seems like a very big deal actually this year, I must admit.
It does. I mean, look, we've been talking off air, haven't we, in the group chat about how frustrating it is that it is Night of Champion as what, 2 title matches. I know they can kind of say, well, you're crowning someone in the King and Queen. I don't mind that. But yeah, strange what they've done with the card. You know, there's been a few twists and turns with it. It's always interesting when they are booking, it seems, 2 shows at once. This time 3 at once, right? We've got Evolution Saturday night's main event and this coming up pretty much all within a short span of time. And by the way, guys, stay tuned here on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We'll try and cover all those shows in depth as much as we can. Had a little bit of a hiatus recently. Of course, you would have seen we didn't really do much for the past few PLEs as much as we usually do, just because of other commitments and things like that. But we are back here for Night of Champions, that's for sure. So what we'll do now, we'll dive into that. You are here tuned into the weekend preview. Again, my name is Scott. We're joined by Lucas, and this is the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let's start talking about the show itself. As you say, Lucas, it is a big card. 6 matches this time. Can you believe it, mate? Just shows what happens when you've got that kind of money, right? You get an extra match, I guess. But let's start out with someone we did see feature quite well, I think, on SmackDown, the go-home show at least. Jade Cargill versus Solo Sikoa, defending, of course, the US Championship here as well. So, yeah, this is going to be one, I think, that could end up telling an interesting story. I don't see, if I'm honest, Solo winning it just yet, but I wouldn't be against him winning it eventually. But I think at the moment it makes more sense to keep it on Jade Cargill. But again, we saw him on SmackDown make the save for old Big Jim. Interesting that we're still getting this kind of bloodline continuation. But hey, I'm all for it. I'm enjoying the work of everybody involved here. I think Jeff Cobb's not as much of a kind of presence as I would have liked. And I'm surprised they haven't used Tama Tonga and Tungaloa lately. I know Tungaloa was injured, but feels a bit strange to me. Don't know where they're going with that, but what they're doing at the moment, I am quite enjoying, and Jacob is just getting over and over and over. So, what are your thoughts on this one, mate? The way it's been built, and ultimately what you think is going to happen tonight, champions between these 2 cousins?
Yeah, I believe Tama Tonga is clear, and I've obviously got, I can't even pronounce the guy's name, Coolio. You know, that one.
Tungaloa?
Not Tongaloa, the one they signed like ages ago, and he only had like a dark match like a week ago.
Oh, right, okay.
What's his name? Hick.
They just keep coming. Oh,
Coolio, thingamajig.
Yeah.
He was part of Bullet Club.
Yeah.
And obviously part of the GOD team. He's the like adopted son of Haku. So he's like, well, I don't know, this family. But anyway, they signed him about a year ago. I never used him on television. He had a match on a dark match for Raw a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
So they've got kind of things brewing. So it does seem very much like we may be. Someone earlier mentioned about Roman Reigns coming back. I don't know if that will be the case just yet. But I think we are kind of going back to. I think tomorrow we will see a new person return.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Part of this match.
Yeah, it kind of fits in this story.
Because they've kept it. Because I mean, you got to think like if they could. I mean, I guess they could do Solo winning, which would be the kind of big surprise. Not surprise, but a big moment from this. You know.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger moment really is them reintroducing the members. Obviously, now that the dynamic's changed, it's bonkers to think that at one point there was enough Bloodline members to do like 2 War Games matches, almost it felt like. But now we can barely get a tag match out. Out of the feud. But yeah, you have to imagine that Jimmy Uso will probably get involved. Well, I don't see this being clean. I maybe might even throw this one maybe even ending as a DQ type of thing. Potentially, because it is hard because, you know, how do you pin Jacob Fatu?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, and I do feel like there will probably. I mean, you've sold me basically that there will be some sort of storyline progression, and we do get a new member or something like that, or an appearance. So I think DQ is the best way to go about doing that, by making Solo look strong, but not taking the title off of Jacob at the same time as well. So, but other than the only other way I see it going at the moment is Jacob winning. So I'm torn between a DQ and Jacob just straight up winning.
Yeah, but I think even if Jacob wins, I think that it will still be down to interference. I can't see it being a clean finish.
Yeah, like Jeff Cobb or JC Mateo gets involved. Big Jim settles the score, level score even. But yeah, and I think that's probably better. Although I know some people get kind of worried about. I mean, I do as well. Too many kind of shenanigans and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, and we did kind of only just get JC Mateo interrupting a little while back anyway. But at the same time, I don't know if a clean pin over Solo's good for Solo. Do you know what I mean? He needs to look credible anyway. I've got to say, really enjoying his work. Like, see, he's funny. Like, I'm still enjoying the stuff he's doing. But I think there's still quite a rebuilding process going on here. So they are kind of at risk with him still. So I think maybe the best case scenario is a crazy DQ ending either way.
Yeah, there's got to be something to it. I think, especially with there being 6 matches as well, you got to argue potentially they might look to book one as more of an angle than a match that makes sense. And it makes sense based on what we know about the Bloodline and how that's gone for it just to be their one. And then obviously they do want to set up, and this program they want to run through, maybe some last minute event or even into SummerSlam. It kind of gives them some legs to do that, and then to extend that to do, if they want to do the title change, potentially do it on SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Particularly, you want it at Mania as well, so it's a bit. I think he's only defended that twice as well. I think, but that's obviously that's all part of the parcel now.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think I will go. No, I don't know, actually. I was going to go Jacob, but then I'm still swayed by the DQ. I mean, we don't have a league table like we used to anymore, so it doesn't matter as much. But I am, if I had to really say, I think there might be maybe not surprises, but noteworthy things happening elsewhere on the card. So I think maybe this will just be a straight up Jacob win. But again, I worry that is damaging to Solo. So, Square, I'm going to go with a DQ finish. Yeah, let's see something exciting happening there. So that, of course, was the Bloodline match from the card. Jacob Fatu, of course, against Solo Sikoa for the US Championship. Next, though, we're going to move on to a match that I think is quite an interesting one to be on this card. I think if it wasn't Night Champions, it wouldn't be, and that's no disrespect to the two people we're about to talk about, but I think the reason why it's on this card is because it features Sami Zayn. Now, of course, Sami Zayn has close ties really with the Arab world, and of course we saw him on the Kickoff show speaking in Arabic, and he always gets a great reception over there ever since he did start visiting the Saudi shows just a few years back. Something bubbling under the surface, though, is this storyline that's been brewing between him and Karrion Kross, and the great work that Kross has been doing, getting himself over, whether it be on TV or whether it be on talk shows or kind of social media or whatever it may be. He's been really vocal about, the fans helping him get to his position, people believing in what he's doing, and I'm all for it. I'm buying into what he's doing myself. How much of it is planned? How much of it is, kind of smoke and mirrors? I don't know. But ultimately, it's the person who I'm interested in getting featured on the PLE, and I'm happy to see that. A new person being featured on the PLE when it seems to be the same people in the merry-go-round quite often, and Sami Zayn kind of bringing him into that position, it would feel. So I'm looking forward to this match. I think Karrion should win. I think you should really build on what he's kind of been doing already, and it would make no sense really for him to lose. I know the pop that Sami would get would be great, a nice hometown, not hometown feel, what am I saying? But you know what I'm saying, again, in the Arab-speaking world where he's kind of somewhat a representation for the people out there in Saudi as well, because of his own kind of background. But at the same time, you get that by him just being there. And we've had great moments with Sami in Saudi Arabia already. So I think it's better to put Karrion Kross over. And I actually think that is probably what they're going to do. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, there's 2 options here that I'm torn between. So option 1 is my favourite option, and that's the option where I think that, so essentially that promo that he did at WrestleMania or WrestleMania weekend, Karrion Kross, I think that was a turning point. and that was a turning point from him going from Karrion Kross and reverting back to Killer Kross.
Mm.
And I think that we need to see Killer Kross, and I'm favouring it. I'm really wanting it to happen because it'll be something which I think will be kind of unprecedented. But I think that this should be a 3-minute match. I think he should absolutely just shock everyone by squashing Sami Zayn and having that look, because he's Karrion Kross's character skills and the fact he's got Scarlett with him. There's so much layers to what he does, and I think it will shock everyone by if that was the match. And I think that would be a way to make a statement and to say, look, we're actually serious about this guy. You know, we're not doing the typical, oh, he'll win, but it'll be like, you know, distract. You know, nowadays it's always appearance and, you know, this kind of stuff. Like, it's no, we care about this guy. We want to put something behind him. Because the thing is, Sami Zayn, like, he has to be this underdog. And I think there's a longer burn storyline coming with Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
I truly believe that he will be world champion at next year's WrestleMania.
Wow, okay.
I think they're already planting seeds for that, because literally everyone who he goes up against for a promo always mentions he hasn't been world champion. And I think that will just eat and eat and eat. And the WWE Universe, I think, and the fan base are going to get behind it. But anyway, that's for 2026.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and again, where is the Royal Rumble in 2026?
Oh, that's a great point, because I actually was thinking a little while back that maybe Sami would win the King of the Ring for the same reason, like it'd be in Saudi, it'd be a nice pop, and then he'd finally get that match and it'd be at SummerSlam. Obviously, we're going a different direction clearly, and we'll touch on the King of the Ring a little bit later on. But I completely see where you're coming from with that. So
that's option one.
Good call.
Option two, which may align closer with what they might do, is Sami Zayn will win the battle, but won't win the war. So I think the mind games that Karrion Kross has obviously been doing, you know, to Sami Zayn and to other people, you know, backstage, I think that will be something that he might even do something such as like lay down for Sami Zayn as part of the match and win, and then so Sami wins. That was all part of his plan, and then afterwards we get the potentially a version, a Killer Kross light, you know, a Hurt Kross, you know, but. And that, it just depends kind of how he's being seen by management, like what they want to do with him. But that is something, again, going back to Vinceism, something that Vince was very much kind of would do with these kind of people. He'd get them to that level, then kind of say, okay, you got to that level, but we're going to do something silly now with you, so that, you know, you kind of had it, but you didn't have it.
Yeah.
But I think that Kross is the performer who could pull either of these things off. But I think his fight would just be with the latter one. He needs to be able to remain on TV to get that rematch. Yeah. To obviously, you know, get a win and go forward with that, because, you know, as we've seen in this Netflix era, you know, TV time is more than currency now. It's everything. You know, and the fact of the matter is, like, he hasn't had a match from Raw since pre-WrestleMania.
And the thing is, this Sami Zayn thing has been a long time coming as well, because he did that he did that thing on Twitter where he impersonated him, stuff like that, and you know, there's all this kind of background stuff where he was wearing his hair a certain way to kind of, and then even on this past Raw, I think, it was on Raw when Sami Zayn punched him and he walked off and he basically laughed to Scarlett, you know, being like, yeah, we got him. It does feel like this is a storyline that's been come a long time coming, but two stories being told at the same time, you know, what, like you said, is kind of new thing that Sami might be going into and Karrion Kross. But as you say, the key is whether or not they build on this. I think you're right. I think the first option is the best one for me. I think for him to just destroy Sami. And again, that's not because I don't like Sami. That's because I think it will tell both their stories even better. So yeah, I like that idea quite a bit. A few comments here just to get to as well. Universal's in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Always nice to see you popping up into the streams. Promoting Sami instead. Big fan of Sami Zayn. Clearly goes Sami. Also mentioned, because of course we talked about Roman Reigns a little bit earlier on, so just to hop back into that for a bit. Roman not returning, they say. Roman filming Street Fighter for 3 months. Yeah, of course, just announced that Roman Reigns is going to be in Street Fighter movie. Roman will be back at Survivor Series, they say. Roman told everyone that this is the last year and that he's leaving. His contract ends in 2026. I think Roman's going to be kind of one that comes in for special events every now and then, but we'll see where we go with that. Universal says SmackDown live show today got hacked. They had to turn off all the equipment and reboot the equipment. It took 30 minutes. Is that what the rumor is going around at the moment? It'd be interesting to see what comes out about that. But keep the comments coming, guys. Daniel Wiley's in the house as well. When is Night of Champions? Daniel, it is on Saturday in the UK. I believe it's late afternoon, isn't it? 4, 5, or 6, one of those sort of things. So have a check online, buddy. But it is on Saturday. If you're watching live with us on Friday, welcome. This is also going to be replayed on the earlier part of our build-up show on Saturday as well. So if you could get a bit confused about me saying the days and stuff like that, hey, that's why. And we are going to be live again on the build-up show, getting you hyped up and in the mood for the PLE as we always do as well. Universal says LA Knight got hurt and is injured, will not be back for a few months. You heard much about this, Lucas? LA Knight?
There is a rumor going around that he is hurt, but it's on some that maybe they are also saying that to move him over to the Raw brand.
Maybe.
To continue the feud with Seth Rollins post SummerSlam.
I think he's really started to pick up recently as well, so it'd be a real shame if it is legit. But yeah, that'd be good. That'd be
so they've already got like a number of wrestlers on the injured list.
Oh, it's growing, isn't it? Yeah,
it's growing and growing. But yeah, sometimes they do say those kind of things to divert the audience's kind of expectations, and then obviously that person will come back later on for something. Particularly in this era we're in now, where it is very common for wrestlers to take kind of lengthier breaks. Look at Randy Orton. He literally was happy to lose in his hometown.
Yeah.
Just appeared 2 weeks ago on SmackDown.
Yeah.
So like after like 2 months, it's now sadly just the norm nowadays. But in terms of Roman Reigns, there's been reports that he actually will be coming back before SummerSlam. I very much believe that will be the case. I think that they wouldn't. There's a narrative going out there. Where Roman Reigns actually represents as he's the bad guy in like all of this, like the bigger bloodline, because of how his part-time schedule has basically influenced affected events. Because it seems every time he loses, he leaves, and when he leaves, the bloodline goes to crap, basically. They all start fighting, all that kind of beef starts, and he returns, and there's big moments when he returns and he leaves again. Same thing, which is now where's Roman to help? Where was Roman to help defend like Jey Uso? All those times he was getting, where was he during all these key moments that he's missing? And then obviously he will return, most likely before SummerSlam. You'd have to imagine. They had been reports that ticket sales are a little bit not the best, so you have to imagine that they would want to get him on the program.
All the names
soon if he is going to be part of the first ever 2-night SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Being said, but 2 nights of SummerSlam this year. So you have to imagine that he would be, but it is very odd because, like you touched on earlier, they're promoting like so many things at once. Because we've still got obviously Saturday Night's Main Event and Evolution. And let us know in the comments below. Actually, something I'm struggling with is that the pay-per-view cards don't sometimes get like a lot of time to build because of this. Because obviously they can't book or do anything for SummerSlam because they've got tomorrow night, and they've got obviously Saturday Night's Main Event and Evolution, which are the women's stories. And then they're going to only have like 3 weeks basically to build a whole card for 2 nights of SummerSlam.
Yeah, but you got those kind of matches building in the back, like the Gunther and Goldberg one, for example. That's been built before that gap. But I think we spoke about a few streams back. This is where I think maybe splitting the PLEs would make more sense, a Raw and SmackDown exclusive type one, because it is getting a little messy. Sometimes I think it's quite exciting when they do it, but other times it kind of feels like, oh, I'm getting in the mood for this. Oh, but that's not this weekend. That's in another. So it can be a little bit risky, I find.
See, I'd split the Saturday Night's Main Event maybe, because that way at least you could, for example, now they've got that as an obstacle as to why they can't build storylines to SummerSlam.
Yeah.
But they could do it for one brand.
Yeah.
If obviously that was a Raw event, let's say, as well, because you've got Goldberg and Gunther.
Yeah.
And then you would then be able to explore the main events going to SmackDown. I guess you could argue this show tomorrow night will determine, obviously, 2 title matches that take place at SummerSlam. But then, it's this case of they need to be careful that they're doing a lot of the same thing like over and over again, because you already got the fact that there's very rigid ways to get title matches in WWE at the moment. You know, like you win the Rumble, you get the title match at WrestleMania. Win the Chamber, you get the other title match at WrestleMania.
You Goldberg, you show up.
You get yeah. Or even now you got King of the Ring, that's a SummerSlam main event.
Yeah.
But like all these big events now are kind of dictated by very kind of like linear ways, which I guess makes it like easier from a storytelling point of view, because they can say, okay, we can start this person's push at X, they win this, and then they'll win that or lose that. But it'd be nice to see some more kind of organic kind of things. I mean, remember a few years back when it was like a fatal 4-way? Was it Lesnar, Joe, Reigns, Rollins? I want to say.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a fun match, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was a fun
yeah.
match. Like obviously, I think Brock retained in the end. You know, but it was just like a fun match. You featured more than like one story in that. And you know, you gave the guys, obviously at the time Brock Lesnar was part time, so the full time guys were able to obviously go into separate feuds afterwards.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. It just stops that kind of stuff from happening, which I don't know. I just find that's a bit of a problem nowadays.
Yeah, I like the kind of, I should say, the structure, almost like the way they build the storylines, but there's room for moving away from rigidness at the same time, because otherwise it can get stale and it can get just kind of stagnant, really, because if you're not coloring outside the lines ever, then it just becomes the same old thing, really, and that you know, that's a bit of a risk in itself. Talking of risk, we're going to fly through some of these comments here as well, mentioning going back to some of these injuries. Just a few comments here from Universal. Keep the comments coming, guys. And again, we really want to know what you think of Night Champions, what you thought would go home Raw and SmackDown editions as well. And in a moment, we're going to move on to the next match that we'll predict as well. But Universal has been dropping some comments again about these injuries. So we'll quickly fly through some of these, saying there's 13 people on the injured list, apparently. Chad Gable's just had surgery and is out until next year. Questions that maybe it could be a return for WrestleMania. I've seen similar reports, essentially, saying that Gable, I mean, speaking to someone that was on fire and then didn't want to, you know, you don't want to get injured at this time, but sadly it has happened. Liv Morgan as well, and he, you know, recently come back from an injury, injured again, which is really sad to see. Rumors being back apparently around the Royal Rumble, so we'll see how we go with that. And then of course the big one that I think is kind of getting forgotten about now, because it was a while ago and there's been so many other big names recently, is, as Universal says, Kevin Owens. Talk about trying to do physio and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a real kind of sad state that we're in with the roster, but at the same time, we got to be honest, it's a very stacked roster, and you know, these ebbs and flows means that sometimes people get opportunities they wouldn't have got. We've seen that in, you know, I mean, just think of Kofi Mania, for example, you know, stuff like that. So, right. So let's move away from injuries and all the sad stuff for the moment. Let's talk about the positives. We've seen someone come back from injury recently, and that is Asuka. She's made her way all the way to the Queen of the Ring final, where she is facing off against, I think, maybe the favorite in Jade Cargill, just by the way they've booked her in the past. You'd expect that she's going to get this next crowning moment to continue her journey, but I'm not quite sure if I'm willing to commit to that prediction just yet. Before we focus on the final, quick look back on the bracket as well. Quite an interesting format they're going with these days, and I've got to say, I actually really like it. Starting out with a triple threat, as much as I am a traditionalist, I do like these triple threats, because I felt like pretty much all these matches, I was like, I don't know where they're going with this, you know, I don't know who's going through here, and I think it creates this kind of different level of buzz, essentially. So yeah, actually really enjoyed the new format they've been toying around with over the past few years, with kind of number one contendership matches, and also here, of course, with the Queen and King of the Ring tournaments as well. But yeah, general thoughts, mate, of the Queen of the Ring. First of all, we'll get to the King of the Ring later on. How the bracket is panned out, and the two finalists, which I'll be honest, I wouldn't have picked these two at the start of it. Maybe Jade, but yeah, really don't know where they're going with it. What are your thoughts?
Just to clarify, I would say I'm getting a bit of echo from your mic. I don't know what.
Oh, okay. Guys in the chat, if you can get any of that as well, let me know. I'll try and mute myself and come back and see if that fixes anything. But
I'll just talk while you try and sort that out, maybe. But yeah, so we Queen of the Ring. Yeah, so we had, it was fatal 4-ways actually they set up for the thing. Triple threats for Money in the Bank, and I think they'd use that for another tournament early in the year as well. Now, I think this is a smart way of doing it, because obviously they've got a big roster and they're trying to give more women opportunities to do it, and it also allows for what I'm hoping for, that it will allow in the future, if they continue this format for next year or the year after and so on, is that it can lead to kind of a surprise kind of victor, because obviously you can have a fatal 4-way with big names like, you know, Rhea Ripley, Seth Rollins, and all that kind of stuff, all that kind of jazz, and they don't have to be involved in the decision. So, you know, The only thing I would say with a lot of these fatal four ways, particularly on the men's side, is we were seeing a lot of interference. Like it was getting to the point where you was thinking, is this the Royal Rumble? Like there's actually somehow about 20 people like in the ring or around ringside. So I think that is something they've got to be careful with. I guess obviously we talked about men's side separately because that was very much tied into Rollins' kind of faction,
Yeah.
which was for me was a problem, but we'll get to that very soon. In terms of the women's side of things, I think the women's side of things has actually been a bit better. A bit less messy. Overall, they've introduced some new stories within this. Obviously, you had, Jade Cargill obviously just in the favourite to win this. She had a very good performance in the Fatal 4-Way and in the match with Roxanne Perez. And Asuka was coming back on the other side of the bracket, I think really kind of, has made a quite exciting final. Obviously last year, Jade and Bianca were tag champions, feuding with the Kabuki Warriors, and this does feel like it is a good fit here because there's already kind of going to be some chemistry. Because obviously, that Jade, I think she's better than people actually think that she is. Like I think there's a lot of this weird narrative around her when it comes to her in-ring performances. Like yes, look, she's not like a Becky Lynch or Charlotte Flair or whatever. But I get that. But I think in terms of what we see, like I think she does quite well. I think she gets kind of exposed quite easily when the matches go too long, and I think that's something more for a booking perspective than her perspective at the moment. Because you'd argue, a performer like her, like you don't really need her to be having like 15-minute matches.
Yeah,
you can kind of do 10 minutes and that'd be fine.
I actually feel like, and I know this is going to get some people up in arms, but I feel like she was. Oh, is it better? Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like she. From what I remember, maybe it's rose-tinted glasses looking back. I feel like she was booked better in AEW as far as her matches go. I think she was protected a little bit more, which is ironic because she was greener back then. But I think, especially towards the end of it, I think they kind of disguised a lot of that quite well. And because she didn't have the longest matches, and when she did, they were pay-per-view matches, and it kind of, she was in there with someone kind of, high caliber and stuff like that. And not to say she's working with lower wrestlers now, but. But I do, I notice every now and then she's slightly out of step.
I think obviously you have to remember she was booked in the tag division for a long time. She was around, very, very skilled workers. And obviously it's only really been this year that she's branched out on her own. But I think she'd already had a kind of defining moment with her match against Naomi at WrestleMania, being a non-championship women's match on a WrestleMania card, and now obviously in the Queen of the Ring. I think that in terms of this match, it's very hard to call because after coming back, really throws spanner in the works. But the only thing I'm going to say is I think that as much as this might upset a lot of Asuka fans, I think we have to just accept that she's pushing 40, she had injuries. She'd already had multiple championships in this company. Despite the kind of quote-unquote people think she's been buried and mistreated and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the company is putting a lot of stock into the future.
Yeah.
I think they'd be a bit daft to not give this win to Jade. Because I think that, putting her, even if she then goes on to lose the championship match at SummerSlam, I think she should be positioned as the person... as the star here.
Yeah.
You can obviously get there's other way rounds and routes to her. And obviously it's very kind of deliberate here with King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring. What remember is that it's their brand's champion is the key thing here.
Okay, yeah.
So I think Rumble they obviously get to pick because they spend about 3 weeks picking to say a name usually. Obviously Chamber they don't get to pick because they have to basically get sloppy seconds. And then is Money in the Bank is they kind of change it every year, don't they? They sometimes say it's for they've had any championship at one point.
Yeah.
In either championship or whatever. But yeah, it's very deliberate here. So essentially, Asuka is a Raw superstar. So if she was to win, she would currently go on to face Io Sky. who Asuka might be surprised at that because she hasn't defended the title since WrestleMania. So she might be like, really?
Yeah. Oh, I'm booked.
And while I guess that could be a thing they do, I think a stronger program, particularly with the threat of Naomi potentially being involved with the SmackDown Women's Championship picture, and the quote unquote kind of dream match you can kind of think that WWE would have, they have here with Jade and Tiffany. I think that would be the smarter title scene to put her in. But I do, and I think Tiffany's performances have actually got much stronger lately as champion. I think that would be a good direction to go in. So I would go with Jade Cargill to win Queen of the Ring.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree. I think, as you say, like there might be some people upset with that because of Asuka. Hey, I'm kind of upset with saying that. As much as I like Jade, I really like Asuka as well. And I feel like, yeah, she's not been buried. She's had good moments in her career and stuff like that. But I think a lot of her title runs feel like they kind of fell flat a few times. And she didn't kind of, sometimes at least, didn't get the kind of position I felt like she should have had as champion. But that being said, as you say, it's clear that WWE have a lot of stock in Jade, and it's time to kind of start pushing that. And realistically, if you take a step back and you just think about it, you think, hold on a minute, yeah, Asuka's here to make Jade look good. Jade beats a legend in Asuka, future Hall of Famer and whatever, with Asuka. So I think it is probably the right call. Even though it does feel kind of obvious, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, really enjoyable Queen of the Ring tournament. As you say, it was Fatal 4-Way. Excuse my slip up earlier on of Triple Threat. But yeah, you're right. Money in the Bank had Triple Threat. This had the Fatal 4-Way. But again, it created that kind of element of who's going to go through. It was quite exciting and not as straightforward as it can be in other kind of years. Get to some more of these comments here as well. Universal says, Jade, before she left with injury / maybe a movie she was making, was scripted to win the title at WrestleMania. Will they still give her the crown now? I agree with the host that I didn't want either of these in the final. It's not so much I didn't want them in the final. It's more I didn't expect it. But now it makes more sense if you're just going in that direction for Jade. I do think they will give her the crown. They'll give her this crown, I think. And as far as crowning her as champion, I'm with Lucas. Not sure she'll win it at SummerSlam, but it does feel like she's probably going to head in that direction at least. And I think she'll get it eventually if she doesn't do it at SummerSlam. Also says Asuka's 43 years old. My goodness, she is in incredible shape for 43 and then some incredible stuff in the ring still. It says second oldest woman in the roster, Tamina being the first oldest at 46. Incredible. I haven't seen Tamina on TV for quite some time, and she was pushed a little while back, wasn't it? Her and Natalia had that little tag run. So
I don't think they had a match since 2023. I don't believe.
My goodness, so what is going on there?
Obviously,
right.
When the Rock's involved, I guess, yeah.
Well, let's move on to we've done the Queen of the Ring. Let's move on to the King of the Ring. So once again, we have the Fatal 4-Way to open up the bracket, and as you can see there, it's ended up with the quite surprising final for me, because I always felt like this could have had a different story told, and that's Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. Now, for me, I just want Randy Orton to turn on Cody and for it to be a big moment that pushes Cody further into kind of that sympathetic babyface, and Randy is being Randy again as a bad guy, and I felt like it was an opportunity for a huge moment, a really shocking turn, but instead they've gone down the route of, and he could still turn, he could lose the match and start beating up Cody at the end or something like that and smash the crown or something, I don't know, but I feel like we've wasted, because they've, even if that doesn't happen, they've kind of wasted it in the future now, because like it won't be as much of a shock if Randy turns, because Randy's already said, look mate, I respect you, but I'm coming for you because look, I am a bit selfish, I'm the Viper, I'm the Legend Killer, yada yada yada. So I feel like they've kind of shot themselves in the foot here a little bit, but that's not to say I'm not excited about the match. I'm excited to see what they do together, especially in this period of Randy Orton's career, especially now that Cody is such a big star as well. It's going to be an interesting little dynamic between the two of them. I feel like surely it is Cody Rhodes coming away with the crown here. It feels like it's got Cody written all over it. But hey, that could be where we get the swerve. It could be a Randy Orton win, and it could be down to him being a kind of devilish heel. I just think it won't be as impactful impactful as what they could have done if he does turn heel in this instance. But what are your thoughts on this one? Again, as a kind of bracket, we'll touch on that as well. But first of all, with the final and who you think might win.
Yeah, so I think this is another reason why I think Jade should win the women's win the ring, because obviously you've got two very, very established and decorated male competitors in the final of this, and so in that special way you're not creating a star here. Sorry, WWE, to burst that bubble, but you are creating and giving. This should be a good match. Yeah, I agree, Universal. It should be a good match. And something they touched upon, I think, on Raw this week was obviously Michael Cole mentioned that King of the Ring used to be about endurance and about fitness. It used to be about who was the best at what they did in wrestling in the WWE, and obviously it was all about a one-night tournament. And now they've moved it to basically a showcase of the best of the best. And this kind of just almost just fits into the general ethos and general feel of like a WWE show nowadays. Anyway, like you are, especially on TV now, like you're seeing very loaded cards, especially when it comes to the main event picture, where you will see the biggest and the best names kind of in action, every week when you tune in. To this tournament, to the tournament final, sorry, I would really like it actually to be Randy Orton. I don't think they should do Cody yet for SummerSlam. I think that they should revisit the Randy Orton thing again. I think that it's one of those where, look, there's certain feuds in the company that the internet fans, get fed up with, or they get annoyed with, or they use it as the quote-unquote reason to turn off. But they just elicit a big spike in ticket sales for the company, as the matches always draws. And one of them, which obviously, people, obviously we were fans, obviously watching the original kind of series of their matches and stuff, but the matches always drew. And they were, and similar, to the Lesnar and Reigns matches. People they just all look at SummerSlam a few years back. It pretty much they sold out a stadium with it because it's just that match that they will keep going back to the well with. And I think because how it ended, there needs to kind of be another match. And I think if they want to do the Cody thing, getting the title back, I don't think it's time just yet. I think the last 2 weeks for Cena have really ramped up like his heel run, the value of his heel run to the company. And so I don't know whether they should flirt or have him lose that title just yet. So I kind of do want it to be Randy Orton. Obviously, he was runner-up last year in that controversial way as well.
Oh, with Gunther, yeah.
Yeah, with Gunther.
Yeah.
Does he become a 2-time runner-up? He most likely does, just because you can sense what Triple H is booking towards. But yeah, I don't want it. I'll be honest, I don't want Cody and Cena at SummerSlam.
No, I don't either.
The only other thing I can think of, and I guess it goes back to the point where I was saying about these things being quite rigid, is what if it's a draw? They do a triple threat, or they do something different going into the situation. But I guess it depends what the end goal is. Like I think Cena has said recently, like apparently we're deciding this run and where it goes. Our reaction to stuff, and because the reaction now is quite hot, are they going to decide like what we may need to pause the kind of getting the belt off this guy, because it's ultimately like the reaction to stuff he's doing is really hot. But then obviously we have got to factor in something we have to talk about very soon. Obviously, is this? I'm assuming that Cena is going to be champion still.
You never know.
And they have also announced that, unlike last year, where the King of the Ring final was the main event, that the WWE Championship match between Cena and Punk will be the main event. So we will be seeing this match before we know for definite who is the champion.
Yeah.
And because both these wrestlers are on SmackDown, which obviously is the home of the WWE Championship, we essentially know that that's what they'll be going after. Whoa. Sorry. Or do we? Because if Punk wins, he's a Raw superstar.
Yeah. And what's interesting as well is the timing of all this, where you've still got Money in the Bank. you know.
Yes.
And speaking of which, you did have a few thoughts, you said, on the bracket and how it was kind of heavily around Seth and his buddies. So yeah, do you want to touch on that here?
Well, yeah. So essentially, you had obviously they put in both Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker into this tournament, which instantly created a problem because it meant that essentially at least one of them could not win their fatal four way because they just couldn't. And then they did a kind of long way round of obviously a lot of interference, a lot of kind of stuff with that. And the Rollins faction is already kind of getting a lot of TV time as it is. And with Rollins having Money in the Bank as well, like it was very much feeling a bit like, okay, like is there going to be any other story to this? And thankfully, they went with the option of basically both of them losing, but via kind of interference and obviously LA Knight involved. But I think for me, that was the difference between the men's and the women's one. I think the men's one focused too much on, in a nice way, a performer who wasn't even in the brackets.
Yeah, good point.
More important than the actual brackets and stuff.
Yeah.
I think once we got to the semi-finals and obviously without the the thing is, I mean, Seth Rollins can't even name his stable at the moment. Like the Seth Rollins group, this pack they've got, I think it actually got a bit better. And in that, again, maybe something to watch out for next year. Like, do they do the similar thing next year where they have a lot of kind of intertwining storylines involve these four-way matches? And then when it's the semi-finals, they then go, okay, this is more like serious now. But yeah, it was just a bit of annoyance for me, having that. And I guess they had a nice tease of Zayn potentially getting the, kind of getting forward.
Yeah.
But it makes sense if what I believe does happen next year at the Saudi Rumble, and he's his moment, I think that will be kind of a good trade.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I mean, it wasn't even in my mind that that's what they could be doing. I do agree with you that I think he'll be winning it. Just to recap for anyone that's joined us late in the show, Lucas was basically saying that Sami could go in this kind of run towards WrestleMania next year and hopefully become the world champion finally and set that up by winning the Saudi Royal Rumble. And I do think that is quite likely. And yeah, hopefully that is something we do see. But like I say, I thought he might get to the final here. It doesn't quite happen. As you mentioned, it was teased, but it did end up becoming Cody versus Randy Orton. When it comes down to it, Lucas, I think I'm still going to go with Cody. I'm like you in that I'm not really looking for the marquee Cena Cody match at the moment. But I feel like it probably is what they're going to do to kind of sell those tickets. As much as you say Cena, Orton sells tickets, completely agree with you there as well. But I think this is much like the Cargill one where they're going to go for it sounds weird saying it about Cody, a man who's been around for a long, long time, but the future rather than, Randy Orton. But hey, at the same time, Randy Orton winning it as one of the last things he kind of ticks off the bucket list before he retires as well is because I don't think he's won it before, has he, Randy Orton? So that would be, I wouldn't be against that and it would freshen things up, but ultimately I feel like it's probably going to be
anyone
Cody.
who was to win out of both King and Queen would be a first time winner.
Oh, okay, yeah, good point actually. So yeah, we're going to get and that's what you like. Even though Cody and Orton have been around for some time, it's very different there. But ultimately, I think first time winners is usually what I'd like to go for anyway. So yeah, that's pretty good. All right, let's move on from the King and the Queen of the Ring matches and move into Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley. Now, I think the presentation of both of these has improved quite a bit lately, actually. I think that Rhea's coming across quite well. I think she's one of those talents who are in the position on the roster where it's easy to slip into kind of staleness. And I think she had done that for a little bit, but I think pairing her with Raquel has actually been an interesting little feud. So I've actually quite enjoyed it. And it's similar because it's linked to Liv in some way, but not getting that same old feud. And it's giving Raquel a chance to shine as well. So I've enjoyed what they've been doing. Not sure if it's, not being harsh, the match I'm most looking forward to on this card. But when it comes to does Raquel deserve an opportunity? I think she does. And does Rhea deserve to be in PLE matches? Of course she does anyway. She's one of the biggest stars in the company. So in that sense, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. But I'm just not sure if it's the match for me when I look at the card. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't understand why it's on a Night Champion show.
Yeah, same.
You know why. You know they had obviously a women's championship match tonight. Why the other women's championship is again not being defended.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's like they wanted to make something to SmackDown rather than I mean, yeah, we spoke about this off air a few times, how ridiculous it is that it's Night Champions is 2 title matches. Just change the name. Call it
Yeah.
King and Queen of the Ring again. Like, why did the Saudi show have to be Night Champions and then you book it without title matches? It makes no sense, especially when you gave us title matches on SmackDown, which, by the way, you know, we got
We've got 3 times.
Yeah, so I appreciate there might be people watching that haven't seen SmackDown yet, so I'm trying to be careful what I say, even though I started with all the spoilers. But yeah, but I was gonna get into some results there. But yeah. So, but barely with the technical issue. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this doesn't need to be on the show. This would be better suited on Saturday night's main event.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, with the current situations going on, you know, with Liv Morgan being injured, and the rumor about obviously her wanting to face Nikki Bella and all that kind of stuff going around, like you don't know what they've had to change in order to get to this. But it does also just scream of a way to get Rhea Ripley onto the card. You have to imagine with the Saudi paying $50 million for a show, like, and you know, and WWE present, this is the match we're going to do. If they would have enough kind of swing to be like, well, Rhea Ripley's one of your biggest stars, like, where is she? Like,
yeah, true.
So in terms of who I think will win, I think it will be Rhea Ripley. I don't foresee anything else, any other option really. I think obviously they're going to want to keep her strong going forward into Evolution, as one would imagine. She'll be one of the kind of big,
surely, yeah,
you know, on that show, along with hopefully Io Sky. If they, I will keep saying this until they give the poor lady a match.
Yeah.
For her championship, that she won back in March.
Yeah, not good enough. But again, it's a common theme, isn't it? Where all these titles not being defended, and again, of all PLEs, not done it. Don't want to get too much on the negatives, but it's got to be said.
The only thing we can say is that she is going to be having a banger of a match at Evolution if they remember to book her. Sorry, that's my last year.
Last little dig. All right, let's get to some more of these comments here again. Universal's dropping some good ones for us here. It says Cody has told everyone that he will be turning heel in the future. Not soon though. In a year or 3. Not too cryptic. I do think it's coming, but not just yet because he's money. He is money, and you've got a lot of heels kind of
he's
big
like
turns anyway.
It a little bit
he's playing up to it, and it will happen. You know, people will start to kind of get a little bit more bored and whatever else. Also says interesting trivia. This is the first time that Randy and Cody have fought each other since September the 2nd, 2013. That match was Cody's last match in WWE, WF as it says. The stipulation was Cody's career on the line. Is that before the whole Stardust situation? Wow, that's quite a great fact there, Universal. Thanks for that. And this would be Cody's receipt on Randy now. It makes sense. Yeah, I like that little bit of storytelling there. Thank you for diving into the archives to bring us that deep take there, mate. Appreciate it. Keep your comments coming, guys. Want to know what you think of this weekend's festivities. Are you looking forward to Night of Champions? And if so, which match are you most looking forward to? And are you in the same camp of us as well? Why is it called that with only 2 title matches? But again, we'll try not to be negative because the card is still an interesting one. We've been breaking it down here live on our weekend kickoff show. You've been watching the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and on the night of the PLE, or the afternoon as it'll be for us here in the UK, we'll have our build-up show, which is something we do for all PLEs, and it's basically getting you hyped up and in the mood for the big show. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned to the channel, and you'll see the live portion of that on Saturday as well. What you're watching at the moment, though, is our weekend kickoff show. We like to kick things off in style here on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and that's, again, what you're watching at the moment. So what we will do on the build-up show is break down the card further, and usually we've got friends from the wrestling media world joining us on that as well. But for now, it's myself and Lucas breaking down the card and let you know what we think is going to happen at Night of Champions by kicking off the weekend in a big way on the channel. So again, subscribe if you haven't already, and you may even be watching this on the build-up show itself, because again, this is going to be replayed on the earlier portion of it, and then after that, we will be going live once again, taking you right up to the start of the PLE, getting you guys hyped up and in the mood, and getting us in the mood for it as well. I'm sure it's going to be a good one when we do get there. But for now, we've got one more match to predict, and it's a big one, and one that we saw quite an interesting setup for on the go home edition of SmackDown, which I do want to get your thoughts on in a minute, Lucas, because it was quite interesting. We came on the air earlier on, it was still live, I was live reacting to it, and then we started a little bit of a review of SmackDown, but we didn't really touch on that final segment. So before we get to the match, before we get to, I guess, anything else that's happened in this feud so far, what were your thoughts on Punk Life as the new Doctor of Thugonomics made his way to the ring in Chicago sports gear and rapped pretty impressively, I gotta say, to remember as much as he did. Look, he remembers promos all the time. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have to. He has to hit certain points. Here, he had to, and you could say, oh, about rapping skills, he's not up there with certain, legendary acts or anything like that. But to simply remember those rhymes, I think he did really well. He stumbled a little bit, but look, it's going to happen. Overall, I thought it was quite interesting. Something I never expect to see from a CM Punk type character, but I think that's why I loved it so much. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I thought that last week was fantastic too. Obviously, the throwback to the pipe bomb.
Yeah.
This episode being, 14 years to the day
Fantastic,
of that pipe bomb promo and him obviously mimicking Cena. I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, he stumbled a little bit, but we all do from time to time. It's one of those promos though. I think the only thing, and this thing, sorry, I want to say this actually. The crowd was actually really good for SmackDown, right?
Yeah.
So before I say what I'm about,
especially at the beginning, before the technical thing, they were on fire. Yeah. But I think I know where you're going with this one.
And yeah, throughout the matches, most of the matches they were really, really positive towards the one, and that was good. It seemed like they were having a good time. But the crucial thing is, they still are like an international territory where there's still a bit of a language barrier potentially, and so some of the lines didn't hit as hard.
Yeah.
They're not used to
like the wordplay and stuff like that. I think it's difficult,
I think like when he mentioned about it, I think as well there's a timing issue as well. Like obviously comedy is about timing, and obviously Punk was going slow to maybe like an English speaking person, but maybe to them they were unable to
catching
kind of follow
up.
it potentially. But because particularly the line, I thought the line obviously. About how they brought back Nikki Bella.
Yeah.
That I think in an American crowd that would have been
got a big it got a bit of one, but not like it. And again, this is the fact that people can speak more than one language is incredible anyway, and clearly they understand enough because they react to a lot of things. But really, you do have to hit just kind of key notes. And I felt the same way. I can't remember which show it was. It might have been. I don't know if it was Berlin or one of the other international shows where, no, it might even been when we were covering the Raws and SmackDowns in Europe, where some of the promos, just didn't quite hit the same because it would have been that country's second language, for example, or it wouldn't be their first, essentially. But that being said, as you say, the crowd were really on fire. Punk delivered quite well. Cena just did what he needed to do, which was look confused and annoyed at the same time. And I think it sold this match in a way that I didn't expect. I mean, we saw Punk on the Kickoff show, WWE's version of the Kickoff at least, saying that, I'm going to do something big on SmackDown. I never expected it to be this. And I give him credit for trying something like this. You mentioned last week with a pipe bomb as well. I think we could do a whole series on the original pipe bomb someday. I'd love to dive into that further. But so I like seeing this one. I like the references, the callbacks to the original one as well. And again, for Punk to come back and kind of take a leaf out of Cena's book here this week, I think was really good. Really fun build these past 2 weeks, but a build that's been going on for a while, really. He came out and criticized Cena and Rock as soon as what went down at Elimination Chamber happened. This has been brewing in the background. A lot of people would have liked to have seen this at Money in the Bank, but, to kind of have that kind of symbolism from the past and stuff like that. But hey, it is what it is. At least they timed in with these nice little anniversaries anyway. I think it's been a good built feud. When it comes to predicting the match, though, look, it's a Cena Punk match. It's hard to really go into it. Look, I think my head is telling me, oh, it's Cena, because as you said earlier on, he's probably not ready to have that title taken off of him. But Punk's gonna win that title someday. Like, he's gonna win a world title in WWE before he hangs up his boots, and we don't know when that's gonna be. And injuries can play a part, and we've seen how that can derail things in the past few years with Punk as well. So I don't know if they just pull the trigger and give it to Punk now. But if I'm again, I think that's my heart creeping in. That's me as a CM Punk fan and enjoying and thinking nostalgia of these two guys, and that we could see a big moment, at the end of Saturday's show. But I think, again, if my head is really taken over, which it probably should, then I think Cena's going to win this one. But I'm looking forward to the story they tell. And I think there is a possibility for some sort of progression of story in another sense, whether it's kind of Travis Scott come out and stand there for no reason again, or something like that. Something's going to happen if Punk doesn't win, surely, right? Maybe it's Ron Killings. What do you think?
Well, yeah, so you got R-Truth, who has been kind of keep calling him out. R-Truth obviously got involved in the match against Orton. So, and there's a lot of narrative, behind there being another R-Truth John Cena match.
Yeah. And
it's interesting that both the previous match they've had were both non-championship matches. So one would argue that they need to maybe do that match. Now, this being Cena and Punk, it's very interesting. Like, this whole year with Cena, really, because it does feel almost like to everyone, it's almost like they're doing the matches in a weird order. Because we've had Orton first, we've had Punk quite early, and it does seem that they're only going to go towards Rhodes being the
winner. Yeah,
the person to dethrone Cena. But are we going to still see a few more swerves? But the problem is, like, we're getting. Okay, right. This is actually quite sad, but we are at the halfway mark. Halfway. This retirement year, we're at the halfway mark. I think in terms of dates and in terms of actual time.
Yeah.
His contract will expire. The last show he will perform at is actually 27th of December, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're now today sitting here on the 20th of June. So we're halfway through.
True. Yeah.
So if now really is the only time they can make these little adjustments, you'd argue, because if they want to get towards the end goal, whatever it is, they've got to get there. And this bit in the middle, they got to determine, okay, can we make a few changes here and there, and then we can get to that end bit. So it's so hard to predict. And obviously we got the threat of a Rollins cash in, because they have again opened up this year that it is for any championship. So Rollins could wish to cash in on this championship, despite him not being a SmackDown superstar.
Yeah.
Not that it really matters nowadays, to be dead honest. But it's the main event. The Cena matches we've seen obviously have been very riddled with controversy, interference, kind of, there seem to be things that are happening. I think it's going to happen again. I think we're going to see John Cena leaving as champion. I think it's the right thing to do. I think that, Punk even said it tonight, where, that obviously Cena will not be here after 6 months, but Punk still will be. I firmly believe that he will be. I think that he'd be. I think he's probably got another couple of years left in him, just about. If he keeps looking after himself, and so potentially, we see this next year, or do we see this Punk being the one to end it, but later on in the year? There's many options, or Punk even beating Cody, and doing it that way. But yeah, I'm gonna go with John Cena. It's so hard though. It's the hardest match to predict, isn't it?
It's crazy because it maybe shouldn't be that hard, but again, you can't help but think of the history, and there's so many different ways I could go with both these guys as far as what's next in the title, and kind of whether Seth Rollins and all the King of the Ring, and there's a lot going on at the moment, and still a lot of unanswered questions about The Rock's involvement and whatever else. But as you said earlier on, I think Cena's heel turn starting to work. Fans are getting on side, and it's been quite good. But again, it's a very tough one to pick. Now, we Also got some great promo videos recently about their yin and yang, showing their history and stuff like that, and how they've kind of switched roles, which I've really enjoyed. Universal's hit us with a comment here, says on all WWE programming, they've said that Punk and Cena have only fought 13 times, with 6 wins, 6 losses each, and 1 tie. But this is a lie, because they've fought each other. He says 27 here, but I know there's another thing that's coming here saying 37 times, apparently. So yeah, talking about house shows, which apparently the record for that is 19 wins for Cena and 18 for Punk. So it is close. Apparently, most recently, Cena beat Punk on a live event show earlier this year in Dallas on February the 25th. But the last match they had, February 25th, 2013, for the title is when Cena won as well. So yeah, interesting points there about their history. It's a lot closer than I would have imagined. Universal does think that Cena's going to win, though. I think, yeah, I think it's likely that it will be John Cena, but I think there's going to be a good story to tell whatever they do. Look, we'll dive into more kind of rumors and kind of possible twists and turns as well, as I'm sure, on the build-up show as well. Hopefully, again, have friends from the wrestling media on that as well. But appreciate you joining me tonight, Lucas, because I know, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to join us on the live portion of the build-up show. But yeah, it's been really good chatting wrestling again. It's been a long time. Apologies for those that have stayed tuned and kind of been expecting some streams lately, but we haven't been able to deliver. But yeah, really grateful that you guys stuck with us. We hit 1,000 subscribers a few months back, I think, around WrestleMania. So just continuing to grow, really. So we want to give you more content, and we're going to try and do exactly that around Night of Champions, but also, again, with those other big shows coming up, Saturday night's main event, Evolution, and all the big stories coming out of WWE and the wrestling world overall. Before we do get out of here, Lucas, what are your final thoughts on Night of Champions as we start wrapping up?
Yeah, I think touched on most things anyway, but I think glad to see 6 matches. Sometimes Saudi events have a pre-show match announced on the day, so
yeah,
it does seem maybe something even with SmackDown Tag Division, because again, one area where I think they are lacking is just tag team representation on the PLEs in general. And yeah, it'd be nice to see a tag match even from the pre-show. I'll be open for that. Obviously, I can't watch the show live, which would be very unique for me because I avoid watching things live. But DKW have a show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Time. So
good luck in that, man.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this back and skipping the ads.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to watch it later in the night then when you get home?
Probably not until Sunday.
Oh yeah. Be careful with the internet, mate. You know
those people now.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
got to be careful with spoilers, though, mate. That's all I'll say. Be careful with that. Universal says, God bless, gentlemen. Enjoy the show and like and subscribe, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Universal. I know you've been with us for quite some time. Always good to see you popping up in the comments. And again, always appreciate anyone that joins us for the streams. And those lurking in the background that don't comment as well, we love you too. We appreciate having you with us. I've been Scott. He's been Lucas. This has been your weekend kickoff show from the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, featuring all the kind of latest news and stories surrounding Night of Champions. We will be back for the build-up show on Saturday as we get into the final hours, counting down towards the PLE itself. But for now, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.